Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the impossible sight that had materialized beyond Kepler 442b's atmosphere. Where there should have been empty space dotted with distant stars, a writhing mass of absolute darkness consumed light itself, its accretion disk spinning like a cosmic hurricane painted in shades of tortured orange and violent red. "How long do we have?" she whispered, her breath fogging the viewport. Behind her, the emergency klaxons had finally fallen silent, leaving only the haunting hum of the space station's life support systems and the occasional crackle from the communications array. Commander Torres, his weathered face etched with lines that seemed to have deepened in the past 6 hours, consulted his tablet with trembling fingers. 18 hours, maybe 20 if we're lucky, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The gravitational effects are already pulling at our orbital mechanics. The planet below. He gestured helplessly toward Kepler 442b, humanity's first successful colony world, home to 2 million souls who had no idea their world was about to be stretched into cosmic spaghetti. Elena had seen the preliminary readings from the deep space monitoring arrays. A wandering black hole, roughly 3 solar masses, had somehow appeared at the edge of the system without warning. No gravitational waves had preceded it, no electromagnetic signatures had announced its arrival. It simply existed where it hadn't before, defying every law of physics she understood. "The evacuation ships?" she asked, though she already knew the answer from Torres' expression. 18 vessels operational, capacity for maybe 50,000 people total. Even if we could get them all launched and loaded perfectly, which we can't. He didn't need to finish. The mathematics were brutally simple. Elena turned back to the window, her reflection ghost-like against the cosmic horror beyond. At 34, she had been the youngest physicist ever appointed to the Colonial Deep Space Research Division. Her theoretical work on exotic matter had earned her 3 peer-review publications and a comfortable research position that should have lasted decades. She had never expected to stare into the face of humanity's extinction. But as she watched the black hole's accretion disk pulse with malevolent energy, something clicked in her mind. The papers she'd published, the late nights spent calculating impossible equations, the experimental data that had seemed too strange to be real, it all suddenly made terrible, wonderful sense. "Commander," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I need access to the station's industrial fabricators. All of them." Torres frowned. "Elena, this isn't the time for the exotic matter research," she interrupted, spinning to face him. Her dark eyes blazed with sudden intensity. "Project Prometheus. The classified files in my lab. I need you to authorize full production capabilities." "You're talking about theoretical physics, Doctor. We need practical solutions." Elena grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "What if I told you that black hole shouldn't exist? That its appearance violates causality in ways that might be reversible?" For a moment, Torres stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. Perhaps she had. But then something in her expression must have convinced him, because he reached for his command authorization tablet. "What do you need?" The next 16 hours blurred together in a haze of impossible calculations and frantic engineering. Elena had commandeered the station's primary laboratory, converting it into something that resembled a mad scientist's fever dream more than a respectable research facility. Cables snaked across every surface, connecting jury-rigged particle accelerators to exotic matter containment units that hummed with barely contained energy. The theory was insane. Elena knew it, Torres knew it, and the 12 exhausted engineers who had volunteered to help her knew it. But insane was all they had left. According to her calculations, the black hole wasn't natural. Someone, or something, had created it using technology that bent spacetime in ways that left microscopic tears in the fabric of reality itself. Those tears were invisible to normal detection methods, but they left signatures that exotic matter could interact with. If she was right, and if her hastily constructed device worked, she could create a cascade reaction that would essentially unhappen the black hole's creation. The energy requirements were staggering, more power than the entire station could generate in a year. But Elena had found a solution to that problem too, one that made her stomach clench with terror every time she thought about it. "You're going to what?" Torres demanded when she explained the final component of her plan. "Create a controlled singularity inside the exotic matter matrix," Elena repeated calmly, though her hands were shaking as she made final adjustments to the containment field generators. For exactly 0.7 seconds. Long enough to generate the necessary energy pulse, short enough that it won't have time to achieve stable event horizon formation. "And if you're wrong about the timing?" Elena met his eyes. "Then instead of one black hole eating our planet, we'll have two." Through the laboratory windows, Kepler 442b hung like a blue-green jewel against the star field, seemingly peaceful despite the cosmic predator lurking at the system's edge. Elena could see the lights of New Geneva on the night side, 2 million people going about their evening routines, unaware that their continued existence depended on calculations scrawled across 17 whiteboards by a physicist who was either brilliant or completely insane. "Initiating exotic matter injection," Elena announced, her finger hovering over the activation control. The containment field shimmered to life, a sphere of twisted space that made her eyes water to look at directly. "Field stable. Beginning singularity formation sequence." The laboratory filled with an eerie blue-white glow as fundamental forces bent to Elena's will. For a terrifying moment, she felt the artificial gravity fluctuate as her miniature black hole clawed at spacetime itself. 0.6 seconds, she counted down, sweat beading on her forehead. 0.7. Now. She slammed her hand down on the release control. The exotic matter erupted outward in a pulse of energy that briefly outshone the system star, racing toward the wandering black hole at the speed of causality itself. For a heartbeat that seemed to last forever, nothing happened. Then, as Elena watched through sensors that registered wavelengths human eyes could never see, the impossible occurred. The black hole simply wasn't. No explosion, no dramatic collapse. It ceased to exist as if it never had, leaving only empty space and the gentle light of distant suns. Elena collapsed into her chair, her entire body shaking with exhaustion and relief. Through the viewport, Kepler 442b continued its peaceful rotation, its 2 million inhabitants safe and completely unaware that their world had just been saved by one human's refusal to accept the impossible. "Doctor," Torres said quietly, "remind me to approve your next research budget without reading it first." Elena laughed, a sound that contained equal parts hysteria and triumph. Outside, the stars shone with their ancient light, and humanity's future remained unwritten among them.